Most men get rejected because they ask the wrong way. They push instead of connecting. But the right questions don't create pressure. They create attraction. When you do it right, she doesn't pull away. She leans in. I'm going to start this video with something honest. Most men don't fear intimacy. They fear rejection. They fear that moment when they make a move and the woman pulls back, turns cold, or says something that instantly kills the vibe. But what if I told you something? There's a way to ask a woman for intimacy without sounding desperate, without pressure, and without facing rejection. A way that uses psychology, not manipulation, not force, but the understanding of how women emotionally decide when they're ready and who they want to be ready with. And that's exactly what you're about to learn. Now, before we get deep into this, let me hook you in with something almost no one knows. Women don't reject intimacy. Women reject the feeling attached to it. If the emotional experience feels wrong, the answer is no. If it feels right, the answer comes naturally. And the trick you're about to learn makes it feel right. Now, let's go deeper. The foundation, understanding female decision. Every man who gets rejected for intimacy usually makes one of these mistakes. He asks too directly. He asks too soon. He asks with nervous energy. Or he asks without building emotional tension first. And here's the secret. Women don't decide intimacy logically. They decide emotionally. They decide emotionally. The moment she feels safe, understood, desired, but not pressured, emotionally aligned, the door opens. So today, I'm going to give you the dark psychology way to ask for intimacy without ever sounding needy, without making her uncomfortable, and without risking that cold rejection. But before we get into the techniques, let me explain something critical about female psychology that most men completely miss. Women experience desire differently than men. For most men, attraction is visual and immediate. You see someone attractive and your body responds instantly. But for women, attraction is layered. It builds. It accumulates through context, emotion, safety, and anticipation. This is why a woman can meet a man, feel nothing, and then 3 weeks later find herself completely drawn to him. It's not that she was playing games. It's that her attraction needed time to develop through emotional experiences. Understanding this changes everything about how you approach intimacy. Because if you know that her desire builds through emotional layering, then you stop rushing, you stop pushing, you start creating the conditions where her desire naturally escalates. Let's start with the most powerful principle. The first trick. You never ask directly. Let me repeat this because this alone can change everything for you. You never ask a woman for intimacy directly. Women don't respond to direct proposals. They respond to emotional invitation. And there is a massive difference. Asking directly creates pressure. Pressure creates resistance. Resistance turns into rejection. But when you invite emotionally subtly, you shift the entire dynamic. She doesn't feel like you're forcing anything. It feels natural. She feels like she is making the decision. And when a woman feels like the decision is hers, she rarely rejects it. Now let me show you how you actually do this. Think about the last time someone tried to sell you something aggressively. The moment you felt pressured, what happened? You pulled back, right? Even if you were interested before, the pressure killed it. The same principle applies to intimacy. When a man asks directly, "Do you want to come back to my place? Or should we take this further?" He's creating a transaction. He's making her weigh the decision consciously, and the conscious mind is where doubt lives. But when you create an emotional invitation, you're speaking to her subconscious. You're creating a feeling, not a question. And feelings don't get rejected the same way questions do. The psychology of emotional invitation. Here's the psychology behind the first technique. Give her space to walk into intimacy emotionally. How do you do that? Simple. You create an environment where she feels safe with you, connected to you, and curious about you. Women say yes to intimacy when 3 emotional switches turn on. 1, safety. 2, trust. 3, anticipation. If even one of these isn't active, she holds back. But here's the good part. You don't need to beg for these. You create them. And the next thing I'm about to tell you activates all 3. Listen closely. Let me break down each of these switches, because understanding them will change how you move through every interaction. Safety doesn't mean she needs to know you for years. Safety means she feels like you're not going to judge her, pressure her, or make her feel like she made a mistake. Safety is created through your emotional stability. When you're calm, grounded, and not reactive, she feels safe. Trust builds when your words match your actions. When you say you're not trying to rush anything, and then you actually don't rush anything. When you respect her boundaries without making her feel bad for having them. Trust is the foundation that allows vulnerability. Anticipation is the chemical magic. It's the buildup of tension that makes intimacy feel electric instead of mechanical. Anticipation is created through restraint, through suggestion, through the space between what is and what could be. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most men focus entirely on creating attraction and completely ignore these three switches. They try to be impressive, funny, confident, all good things, but they forget that a woman needs to feel safe, trusting, and anticipating before any of that attraction converts into intimacy. The second trick, the soft withdrawal effect. This is one of the smoothest dark psychology methods ever. Here's how it works. Instead of leaning in towards intimacy, you gently lean out. Not in a rude way, not in a cold way, just in a way that shows you're comfortable with connection, but not demanding it. This does two things. One, it removes pressure instantly. Two, it creates emotional space where she starts leaning in. Women feel safe with a man who doesn't rush intimacy not because he doesn't want it, but because he respects energy. When she feels you're not trying to get something, she starts moving toward you on her own. And that is exactly when rejection disappears, because now it's her idea. Let me give you a concrete example of how this looks in real time. You're sitting close to a woman. There's chemistry. The conversation is flowing. Most men at this point would escalate physically. Move closer, touch more, try to kiss her. But what happens? She often pulls back slightly, not because she's not interested, but because the escalation felt like pressure. Now imagine this instead. You're in that same moment. Instead of leaning in, you lean back slightly. You pause. Monte. You look away for a moment. You create just a tiny bit of space. What happens in her mind? Suddenly the pressure is gone. And in that absence of pressure, she becomes aware of her own desire. She thinks, wait, why did he pull back? Does he not want this? And without even realizing it, she starts leaning in. She initiates the touch. She closes the distance. This is the soft withdrawal effect in action. You're not rejecting her. You're not playing games. You're simply demonstrating that you're comfortable with the natural flow of energy, and that comfort makes her feel safe enough to pursue. But the next trick, this one builds anticipation, the strongest desire trigger in female psychology. The third trick, the implanted thought shift. This is subtle, psychological, and extremely effective. You don't ask for intimacy. You simply give her a thought that naturally leads her toward the idea. How you use soft, emotionally suggestive statements like, I really like the way our energy feels together. You're surprisingly easy to be close to. You have this calmness that makes everything feel natural. None of these ask for anything. None of these push, but all of these plant a seed. Women respond to feelings, not instructions. When she feels something around you, intimacy becomes her curiosity, not your request. And in that difference, it's everything. Here's what's happening psychologically. When you use these statements, you're helping her become conscious of feelings she's already experiencing, but hasn't put into words yet. When you say, I really like the way our energy feels together, you're not introducing a new idea. You're articulating something she's been sensing. And when you articulate her own feelings back to her, she thinks, yes, exactly. That's what I'm feeling too. This creates alignment, and alignment is magnetic. There's also a principle in